I'm here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind me.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena.
And most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
It's the weirdest thing to watch. It's so weird to watch. WMBB-TV broke the story, the Lynn Haven corruption story. They've been in the lead on it, right? That's their baby, this story. They're not covering the story. They didn't even cover the big news that came out about 3 days ago. Judge Walker granted the defendant's request to unseal just about everything. And in about a week, we should have access to all that. We being the media and the people. Do you know how much that upsets Lynn Haven officials? Do you know how much that upsets the sheriff's office? Oh my goodness. Do you know how much it upsets the prosecutors and the FBI that there's transparency, that we'll actually get to see what it is that the mayor and the wealthy developer did, you know, the Bonnie and Clyde of public corruption in Lynn Haven. We're going to get to see the evidence. I believe even the FBI investigation notes are going to be available for us to see. So what did former city manager Michael White say in 2020? They said during the evidentiary hearings that he was interviewed by the FBI. I don't remember the number, something like 14 times, more than anybody else. Okay. Ricky Ramey was interviewed by the FBI. You know, he had told the FBI in those FBI notes called 302 forms that Michael White had brought in a sack of cash and dropped it at his feet and said, I got to go to a meeting. Chief, watch the money. A sack of cash. He told the FBI it was $35,000 to $40,000 in cash. That's unusual. I still don't know where the hell the money went. Chief Ramey said under oath that he didn't know how much was in there because he didn't touch it. He just sat there and looked at it the whole time. Said, why don't you put it in your own office? And evidently, city manager Michael White said, I don't want anybody to steal it. Valid concern, you know. If I'm walking around with a sack of cash, $35,000 to $40,000, you're going to know I got some new patrons, is what I'm trying to say. You know, I got some more sponsors, maybe some unknown patriots donating to the show. But what they said, though, was city manager Michael White, right after the hurricane, said that the sack of cash was only 10 grand because he had sold a Jeep and he was going to go buy some property from Panhandle engineering owner Jim Slonina. Okay. I don't know if he ever did. Is that how you buy property? But anyway, Chief Ramey watched it and said that Michael White came back and got it. A sack of cash. Now, if I'm the FBI and I'm not an investigator, I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed watchdog, I'll sniff around a bit. I'll ask a few questions until I'm satisfied with the answers, right? And if I see, I don't know, a sack of friggin' cash, I might want to chase it down. Why they're not doing that, I don't know. Did anybody else see the sack of cash? We don't know these answers, but we might. We might when we get to see what was asked. But one of the big questions about this whole Lynn Haven corruption case is why the FBI didn't follow certain leads. Why did they ignore evidence that pointed elsewhere? And why did they keep pushing forward along with the sheriff's office in one direction that we now know isn't true? How do you know that, Bernie? Well, 62 of the 64 charges have been dropped. That's one thing. Doesn't mean they didn't do it. That's not. You can't prove a negative, okay? All you can do is say, these are the charges levied. This is the evidence. Does it support it? Yes or no? But when 25 charges are dropped by the prosecutors themselves, again, that's another clue, I'd say. So anyway, this is all coming out. Big news. Did WMBB report it? Let's look. I don't want to just guess, right? I just sat here and said, take a look. So let's take a look and see if WMBB has yet reported the 3-day-old news, the huge news that Judge Walker unsealed all the most all of the pleadings and the FBI notes and the Bay County Sheriff Office reports and stuff. Let's see, WMBB, the leader in the Lynn Haven corruption story. Here we go. Well, I don't see it. Do you see it? Walton County tries to keep up with the housing demand. GCSC opens military veteran center. Cold stunned turtles return to the sea. All right. News pet adoption. Tragic story about a biker. I hate those. God bless him, his family. Oh, gosh. Panama City School to rezone and for local attorneys explain stand your ground. I'm not seeing any story about the released documents, though. However, that's not to say that WMBB is not doing any reporting. They did a story yesterday or the day before that I want to watch with you. But do you know when on December 12th, when Lynn Haven Police Chief Ricky Ramey went on the stand at the evidentiary hearing and had to answer all those questions, he was so mad when he left that 4 days later he arrested James Finch's wife. And the whole point the defendants are making is that this is vindictive police work and vindictive investigations and vindictive prosecution. And 4 days later, Chief Ramey goes and arrests James Finch's wife on some crazy ass charge. That story will come back, I'm sure. But WMBB covered that, and they left that story up on the front page, like what we just saw on the website. That took up the whole front page of the website. A picture of his wife for like an entire 24 hours. That was the big story WMBB posted on there. But they can't get around to even telling you about the biggest story yet. As we continue to wait for Judge Mark Walker to see if he's going to issue any sanctions at all against the prosecutors and the investigators. That still hasn't come out yet. Clearly, he's going over it with a fine-tooth comb, as they say. The trial, the actual trial, Margot Anderson's facing 2 counts. James Finch is facing 3 counts, I believe, is scheduled to take place in Tallahassee in 31 days. 31 days. That's how fast it's coming. Do you want to see the story that Lynn Haven? You're not going to believe what I've done. But Lynn Haven did a story yesterday or the day before about how much Lynn Haven is doing to hold Chief Ramey, the vulgar and vindictive police chief in Lynn Haven, accountable for that text message. I'm going to show you their report, and I'm going to show you some ways that I improved their report right after this.
When your life is on the line, hire the lawyer who lives in our community, works in our community, and worships in our community. I'm Al Saulene, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
All right. Let me pull that up right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it all the way through. I took their news story, WMBB's news story, which is straight up PR damage control. And I'm going to play it all the way through with my little embellishments where I add a few things in the story for you so you get the whole story. And then I'm going to play it again and look at your comments and answer some questions, okay? And maybe comment a little bit about it. But here we go. Let's take a look at what I put together today.
Discussion surrounding Lynn Haven Police Chief Ricky Ramey's text messages reportedly using derogatory language about women and lesbians. When the issue first surfaced late last year, City Commissioner Judy Tinder called for Ramey's resignation. Well, the city's outside labor attorney recommended against that move, and Ramey received a letter of reprimand in his personnel file. But as News 13's Courtney Evans tells us, tonight we're learning that city officials are requiring Ramey to go further in making amends.
A few people continued to express their feelings during Tuesday's Lynn Haven City Commission meeting regarding some inappropriate text message sent by Police Chief Ricky Ramey. City Mayor Jesse Nelson says the issue is not being overlooked and there is a plan to continue the dialogue. That started with a meeting last week with the local president of the Gulf Coast LGBTQ Center.
It provided us to offer more transparency as a city. So that people can see this is not something that we condone, but also so that they can see that it's not something we're overlooking, that we have been proactive and very thoughtful in how we're handling this situation.
There will be a multi-step plan to address the concerns and avoid future issues. One part is the mayor making a statement.
Make a statement so that the citizens in our community will understand that everyone is safe, no matter your race, ethnicity, sexuality, or age, that you can certainly trust our local law enforcement not to discriminate against you for those factors or for any factor at all.
He also wants to inform the community about the training that is required for all law enforcement in relation to diversity and inclusion. Mayor Nelson plans to have a private meeting with the parties involved.
Try to conduct a one-on-one session between Chief Ramey and Ms. Tinder and Ms. Vicky Cook, so that he could personally sit down with them and make an appeal to them regarding his regret and his remorse over the situation and over his statement.
Nobody said, you know, Judy, I'm sorry that you're going through this. Your partner doesn't deserve it. It was really ugly. We know it's embarrassing. We know that you've made a big deal about it because you were willing to take the heat because you thought that action should be taken. But, geez, just as a person, you didn't deserve that. And I'm sorry this is happening to you. I disagree with you. But, Judy, as a human being and as a colleague, I'm sorry that this is happening. You don't deserve it. Not one person said anything even close to that. They didn't say a word about it.
Several commissioners apologized to Tinder at the meeting.
We're all one commission. We're one family. And so then when one of us is hurting, all of us are hurting. And so to see one of our fellow commissioners hurting, wanted to let her know that we're here to support her in any type of way that we can.
In Lynn Haven, Courtney Evans, News 13, Panhandle Strong.
Mayor Nelson wants the LGBT community to be more visible in the Lynn Haven area. He also plans to hold a town hall meeting on February the 23rd, giving residents a chance to talk about safety concerns within the city.
All right. All right. So we went through it once. I see some of your comments. Now I'm going to go through it again, and I'm going to read your comments. And I'll, if you have questions about any of this, if I know the answers, I'll try to answer. But I'm looking at your comments right now. What I want you to know is, and there's a few things about this whole situation in Bay County and that mirrors what's happening all across the country, all across these United States. And it particularly upsets me because the reason that corruption all over has exploded is because the news outlets have been bought, literally bought. Around 2015, 80% of news outlets were bought by 6 corporations like Disney and Verizon and Comcast. And so they got tired of fighting Congress and then having to try to get good coverage from the press. So they just bought the press. So that's why national news is the way it is. They're just PR firms for the corporations. It's not the news. Don't think of it as the news. It's not fake news, it's PR. And the exact same thing has happened locally. The exact same thing. So they've figured out, local government, that if they pay enough money in through quasi-government entities that they fund, like the TDC, for example, if they get the news outlets addicted to that revenue, and then the news outlets proudly call themselves public-private partnerships, that's a major reason why this is pure PR. Pure PR. And as a matter of fact, it's often a response to what we say here. I'll show you next time we run through this right now. But also, it's important for you to know that WMBB in particular is partners with Neves Media. If you look on their TV, on the screen, it often on the bottom right says partners with Neves Media. Now, Neves Media, they're not doing it as much anymore now that everything's kind of under the microscope, but they would, like, let's say somebody's running for county commission, like Griff Griffiths when he ran for county commission. Well, that's not a good example, actually, because he was appointed once, and then the second time he used somebody else. But say Robert Carroll. So what happens is the local good old boys will he doesn't have to raise money. They have I forget what it's called, the Bay County Construction Alliance or something like that. And these guys would put like $100,000 in his campaign account. And then they would take about 60 grand of that. They'd hire Arthur Cullen to be the campaign manager. And they would take about 60 grand of that and they would funnel it through Neves Media, who would make the campaign signs and the commercials and that sort of stuff, right? Understand that that is a partner now with WMBB. So, and there's more to the story too. I haven't even told you because I'm not sure it probably is appropriate to report, but I just haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet. But let's just say that there's a family affair going on. I mean, for example, Chief Ramey's wife is, I believe, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, okay? But I'm pretty sure that she's like sells advertising for WJHG. She's an employee. And there's a family affair with the sheriff's office and WMBB. I mean, it's you can't have honest government if the press is doing PR for them. The press's job is to be a watchdog of power, particularly of government. They are colluding local news outlets and local governments, they are colluding to mislead you, to lie to you. It's straight up propaganda. And I like to say this, and I'll say it. The extent to which there is public corruption is the extent to which there's no coverage of it. Please hear that. Hear that again. Somebody write that down. Write that down. That's important. The extent to which there's public corruption is the extent to which there's no coverage, no news reporting of it. And that's what we see here. It's a microcosm of what's happening across the country. And that is one of the scariest things. Thomas Jefferson used to talk about this kind of stuff. The importance of a free and vibrant press. He once said that if given the choice of only government or only a free press, he would choose only a free press. Because without it, you have straight up, full on, 100% I want to say, carrying the water for corruption. This is PR posing as news. This is journalistic malpractice to the extreme. There's not a single critical question. All right, so let's watch through this again. I'm going to look at your comments if you have questions that you'd like answered, or I'll be looking at them. But let's go through this again, and I want to try to answer some questions. All right, here we go.
Discussion surrounding Lynn Haven Police Chief Ricky Ramey's text messages reportedly using derogatory.
All right, right off the top, listen to the contempt in Huey Lewis and the News's voice, Tom Lewis's voice. He's the news director. He's a good old boy. Listen to the contempt in his voice. The text messages. They used to be alleged text messages, but now they know they're going to be released in 7 days. And they're going to have to confirm that, yes, indeed, what I have is real.
Discussion surrounding Lynn Haven Police Chief Ricky Ramey's text messages reportedly using derogatory language about women and lesbians when the issue first surfaced late last year.
Way to go, Huey Lewis and the News. You're doing great. Women and lesbians.
City Commissioner Judy Tender called for Ramey's resignation. Well, the city's outside labor attorney recommended against.
The city's outside labor attorney. See, these lesbians and women, in the text messages, but the city's labor attorney said that there's no problem at all. They forget to tell you. They don't forget to tell you. They hide from you that the attorney that they used, the labor attorney, is also the boss of all the attorneys at the Florida Police Chiefs Association. They left that out.
City Commissioner Judy Tender called for Ramey's resignation. Well, the city's outside labor attorney recommended against that move, and Ramey received a letter of reprimand in his personnel file. But his new.
Let's go over this letter of reprimand. All right. Usually a letter of reprimand will quote what you said, when you said it, how many times you said it, who complained about it. They'll cite the internal policy that you have to read. They'll make you do all. That's what a normal written reprimand is. But let's read this one from Vicki Gaynor, city manager. Pursuant to my counseling session with you today, Chief Ramey, your comments, and then here come the excuses, while made outside the office setting on your personal cell phone and several years ago, were insensitive and inappropriate, I'll say. And then this is the whole reprimand now. I'm requiring you to review the personnel policies related to such conduct. She doesn't cite which one it is. In the future, such comments will not be tolerated. That's the written reprimand. Does that seem sufficient to you?
As News 13's Courtney Evans tells us, tonight we're learning that city officials are requiring Ramey to go further in making amends.
A few people continued to express their feelings during Tuesday's Lynn Haven City Commission meeting regarding some inappropriate text message sent by Police Chief.
I'll say, does that look like they don't notice WMBB never tells you what the inappropriate text messages are? You just know it's about women and lesbians, if you listen to Tom Lewis. That's a pretty big deal, And there's a lot of other text messages too, but we're just focused on this one at the time, and that's we'll stick with it.
Chief Ricky Ramey. City Mayor Jesse Nelson says the issue is not being overlooked and there is a plan to continue the dialogue. That started with a meeting last week with the local president.
Continue the dialogue? There's a plan to continue the dialogue. But is there a plan to discipline the chief? Is there a plan to make the city feel like you've got a police chief that's not vulgar and vindictive? Maybe that you hold him accountable to the internal policies, which expressly forbid this kind of stuff. No. Instead, it's they're just going to continue the dialogue. Don't you love that?
It was not being overlooked, and there is a plan to continue the dialogue. That started with a meeting last week with the local president of the Gulf Coast LGBTQ Center.
It provided us to offer more transparency as a city.
Just think about that comment. I just want you to think about the comment. It provided us to offer more transparency to this from the city as a city. What are you even talking about? A meeting with the local LGBTQ community provided you more transparency? What does that even mean?
So that people can see this is not something that we condone, but also so that they can see that it's not something we're overlooking, that we have been proactive and very thoughtful in how we're handling this situation.
There will be a multi-step plan to address the concerns and avoid future issues. One part is the mayor making a statement.
Make a statement so that the citizens in our community will understand that everyone is safe, no matter your race, ethnicity, sexuality, or age, that you can certainly trust our local law enforcement not to discriminate against you for those factors or for any factor at all.
He also wants to inform the community about the training that is required for all law enforcement.
Now, let me ask you this. Does the young lady doing the reporting, does she sound as though she is doing a news report, or does she sound as though she is fervently making the argument for the city? You know, one of the reasons that look, I went to journalism school, okay? The biggest reason that most people go to journalism school is to make a difference, right? And I was unusual from my colleagues in journalism school because they all wanted to make a difference, right? They all wanted to bring about more equality or whatever it is that they wanted to do. Obviously, I want honest government and everybody to be treated equally and so on and so forth. But they all had these sort of ambitions, like, you know, they believed that women were being mistreated, and they wanted to, you know, like Barbara Walters, you know, break a glass ceiling and do reports that show how women are being mistreated or this kind of stuff. And here we see them actually making the argument for government in a case where that's exactly what happened, is that a minority was mistreated. I mean, it is amazing. You couldn't get a public information officer working for a city give a more fervent argument on behalf of a city than what you're hearing from this news report.
Enforcement in relation to diversity and inclusion. Mayor Nelson plans to have a private meeting with the parties involved.
Try to conduct a.
Now this is sick, actually. Judy Tinder and her partner have said, well, look, we don't trust Ricky Ramey. You know, we don't believe he acts in good faith. For one thing, Ricky Ramey will secretly record you in a one-on-one meeting. Here's a pro tip for you. If Chief Ramey ever comes up and stands next to you, I highly recommend that you put your phone on airplane mode and turn your Bluetooth off. Highly recommend you do that if he ever comes and stands next to you. All right. Just a pro tip for you. So they don't. Who's the, if there's such a thing, who's the victim here? You know, and Judy wouldn't want to be called a victim. But I'm just saying, you've got one person who's been mistreated here, and who has said, look, I don't want to have a one-on-one meeting. She has said during the meetings that I would like to talk about this in public. It's a public issue. Let's talk about it in public. But here you've got these victim shamers who are trying to strong arm the people who are abused into meeting privately with somebody that doesn't act in good faith. This is sick. This is what happens in a toxic relationship. This whole story is to victim shame and strong arm and make Judy Tinder look like, Commissioner Tinder, that she's the one not acting reasonably. The mayor just wants to put together a private meeting. Well, they don't want any part of that. They want a public conversation.
To diversity and inclusion. Mayor Nelson plans to have a private meeting with the parties involved.
Try to conduct a one-on-one session between Chief Ramey and Miss Tinder and Miss Vicky Cook, so that he could personally sit down with them and make an appeal to them regarding his regret and his remorse over the situation and over his statement.
Nobody said, Judy. So this is interesting because about 2 weeks ago, at the city commission meeting when this first came out, not one of them publicly apologized to her. Instead, they all made her look like she was being unreasonable. Okay, and I made this point 2 weeks ago. So in response to this, because they knew I was right, they're making a big deal about how they all publicly apologized to her, except for Brandon Aldridge still hasn't. With his dark heart and opportunistic ambitions. So because I said this and pointed out that not one of them even pretended to give a damn about her as a human being, 2 weeks later now we're all hurting as a family. Watch. I'm sorry that you're going through this. Your partner doesn't deserve it. It was really ugly. We know it's embarrassing. We know that you've made a big deal about it because you were willing to take the heat because you thought that action should be taken. But geez, just as a person, you didn't deserve that. And I'm sorry this is happening to you. I disagree with you. But Judy, as a human being and as a colleague, I'm sorry that this is happening. You don't deserve it. Not one person said anything even close to that. They didn't say a word about it.
Several commissioners apologized to Tinder at the meeting.
We're all one commission. We're one family. And so then when one of us is hurting, all of us are hurting. And so to see one of our fellow commissioners hurting, wanted to let her know that we're here to support her in any type of way that we can.
In Lynn Haven, Courtney Evans, News 13, Panhandle Strong.
Mayor Nelson wants the LGBT community to be more visible in the Lynn Haven area. He also plans to hold a town hall meeting on February the 23rd, giving residents a chance to talk about safety concerns within the city.
All right. Isn't that something? So the point I'm making is that Lynn Haven still hasn't reported the latest news. I'm sorry, WMBB still hasn't reported the latest news. The incredible news and the news that's coming out, oh my goodness. But instead they're doing PR, falling over themselves. They're tripping over themselves to do PR for Chief Ramey. And it's not working. And there's more to this story that I am looking into that I'll be sharing with you that is just as funny as it is dishonest. Does anybody here believe that the commissioners and the mayor, that anybody, the police chief, the city manager, is there anybody with us right now that actually believes that when one of them's hurting, they're all hurting, that they all care deeply about Judy Tinder? Here's what I think they think about Judy Tinder. Okay. I think that they think, based on their actions and words over the past several months, what they think about her is, you had it coming, lady. You had it coming. It's sort of like I'm careful when I say these things because this may have happened to you, and I'm not minimizing what happened to you. Okay. I'm just making an analogy. So please bear with me on the analogy, okay? It's sort of like a rape victim. When people say, well, you sort of were dressed kind of sexy that night, and you had a little bit too much to drink there, These things happen. It's this whole victim shaming. It is a much lesser version of that. And now there's this weird attempt to strong arm the person who was mistreated into a one-on-one meeting with a vindictive and vulgar police chief who is known to record people secretly. And they don't want any part of it. They shouldn't have to answer that. They want to have a public conversation, though. All right. I just wanted to let you know what WMBB is doing to report the all the latest news. It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at pcairrepair.com. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. All right. I've got some stuff. There's going to be so many big stories breaking at any moment as this crescendo continues. This big giant crescendo to the Lynn Haven corruption case continues. Big stories coming out. I've got a little one I'm working on for that you're going to find fascinating. And so I'll be back to tell you that probably tomorrow. Also want to thank, of course, the Unknown Patriot for your support in my effort to tell you the truth, to tell you what the news outlets won't tell you for reasons I described earlier. All right, with that, I'm going to take off. Thank you for being with me, and I'll see you soon.